This is the 46 of 46 podcast Summit Sessions, where we'll talk all things Adirondack, backcountry, and beyond. From high peak stories and adventures to trail tips and tricks, we'll dive deep into the heart of these mountains and the people who passionately climb them. Adirondack maps and spruce traps, bushwhacks and backpacks. It's all here on the 46 of 46 Summit Sessions. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Summit Sessions right here on the 46 of 46 podcast, and I have a special treat today. You have asked for him. Many people have messaged me to have him on the podcast, and the man behind the page is here today to talk all things ADK Fun Police. His name is the ADK Fun Police on Instagram. I'm sure if you're following this page, you probably follow his as well. His name is Mike, and we're going to talk all things Adirondack Fun Police, law enforcement, leave no trace, camping rules and regulations, and probably a lot of stuff about the AMR and the permit system. But I'll get right into it. Mike, welcome to the 46 of 46 podcast.
Thanks for having me, James. This was a long time coming, and thanks for your kind words.
Absolutely, yes. I feel like we will have a fun hour of riffing
for sure.
About all things Adirondacks and the outdoors and all this stuff. So
plenty to talk about these days.
There certainly is. So Mike and I have messaged back and forth since I guess you started the page, and now you have over 5,000 followers, way more than even my podcast does. So clearly, despite being one of those pages where people so often are like, God, I hate the ADK Fun Police, it has grown. And I think
they can't stay away.
Yes, exactly. I don't know. Maybe your page is like, is it like when you see a car accident on the side of the road and you can't help but look away, like you have to stare and therefore you have to follow, even if it bothers people? I don't know. But what I know about what I like about what you do is there's so much, like leave no trace shaming and that whole thing. And I find it always pretty off-putting. I have found, and I give this a compliment to you, that the approach that you take when you are legitimately educating people and just, hey, just a heads up, maybe that this is actually, breaks this rule or this law or whatever. I have found that the way that you go about it is actually very classy. So I do compliment you on that.
I appreciate that. There's definitely a concerted effort to that end. It's kind of, been a work in progress and a learning experience for me. And I know for the Adirondack community is how to engage with people when you see those behaviors, because God knows we all see it. You go up in the mountains in the summer and it's happening. And, it all goes back to something, an article, I forget where it was, but the approach is called authority of the resource. It's a way to engage people that kind of, uses your shared love, because obviously, you both love the wilderness if you're both out there. So it kind of uses that shared interest to convey, hey, these are the rules. And not only these are the rules, but this is why the rules exist. So it's been kind of a work in progress, and it's a constantly evolving, strategy. But, I appreciate that you recognize that, because it has been pretty effective, I think.
I think so too. And at this point, I'm pretty sure everyone that follows this podcast probably also follows your page. And I have found people don't want to end up on the ADK Fun Police page. So it's kind of funny how that has occurred. And I remember
a deterrent effect, right?
Yes, I remember when you first started and you had said something to me about can you believe I have 500 people following this, and now you have 5,500 people. It's
right.
Pretty wild. So clearly there's a lot of people out there who follow your page, follow your mission, and I love how you write on your Instagram page, not a real law enforcement agency. I think that's very funny.
And that profile's been the same since I started it. So that's kind of one of the throwbacks to, it was really this tongue-in-cheek thing. It started on Reddit, and here we are, like you said, on Instagram with 5,500 people. So it's really, I don't know if it's the, I'm not a comedian, but maybe it's the memes or the messaging or a combination of everything. But no, it's certainly struck a chord.
Yeah, I think you've done a great job. So let's before we kind of dive into other subjects or whatnot, just what made you start this page? Tell us about Mike, the dude behind the ADK Fun Police Instagram page.
Sure. So I'm And my wife and I live in the foothills of the Adirondacks. We grew up with a family place up north of Tupper. So the Adirondacks are near and dear to my heart. Grew up, camping on Lake George. So I was, I was just a, Reddit lurker, on the Adirondacks page, and you'd see things pop up every so often, and it was kind of a degree of, kind of some gatekeeping, kind of some of that shaming you were talking about, and which is really all over the Facebook groups, a lot of them that you see, and it started as this tongue in cheek thing, it was a combination of, well, some of these things are legitimate concerns because a lot of these people are going out unprepared and they are going out, getting into trouble or violating leave no trace principles. But it was also a way of, well, hey, like, there's kind of some, some humor or something that could be, maybe exploited to convey the message. So it started as this Reddit page, and all of a sudden that got, a few hundred followers, and it was like that for a few months. And then I said, all right, Instagram is really my bread and butter. That's kind of, I guess I'm more the Instagram generation than the TikTok generation. I don't know how to use TikTok, but yeah. So we branched over into Reddit, and it kind of exploded from there.
All right, very cool. So now, really, kind of what made you, so you started it on Reddit.
Yep.
Obviously, you have, a passion inside, if for lack of a better word, to, for people recreating outdoors in a more responsible manner. So there had to have been, almost like a tipping point or a specific thing that happened that you read or that you saw that made you decide to make the Reddit page, and then obviously you made the Instagram page. So what kind of led to you deciding to even spend your time, doing this? So many people talk, and they talk a big game about how much they love this park, and then they shame people and this and that. But it's like, I always want to ask them, what are you doing though to better the place? And most people aren't actually doing anything. You decided to take steps to, okay, well, here's how I can contribute. Here's something that I can do. And it has been very effective because people don't want to end up on this page, which, it keeps things in check, and it forces people to like, okay, let me find out if this is right or if I am allowed to do this. And that you win.
Yeah. No, that's a good point. So I don't know if I could trace it. I mean, I'd have to go back and look at my early posts to see, what was really the trigger, but it was probably, I don't have a distinct memory of this, but there's a few instances where, someone would post up a question on Reddit. They've never been to Adirondacks. They're coming to town to look to do something. And they're like, oh, something like, oh, what's this trap dike like? Or, just some question where it's like, all of us who are in the know are kind of like, ooh, like, don't do that, or something like that. And so there'd be, educational comments or like, hey, this is probably what you should do. Or if you're not a very experienced hiker, maybe stick to, non-high peaks, maybe look at these alternate mountains, Hurricane J or something like that. And then, some people would attack those comments and say, oh, here comes the fun police again, let people do what they're going to do. So it kind of sparked from interactions like that, where it was, hey, we're not looking to, to gatekeep or something. It's really just trying to help people have an enjoyable, safe experience out there. And it's not about, prohibiting people from having a good time. It's trying to help them have a safe time and a good time. So that's probably the kind of interactions that started it. As far as me putting my time into it, I guess I'm a glutton for punishment in that aspect. In that,
Same.
you know the drill. Absolutely. So yeah, I mean, I saw that there was attention being paid to these things, and like I said, I've known the park for most of my life, and so we do see the changes, and we do see the increase. I won't call it overuse, but we see the increased use of certain parts of the park, and we have very good organizations in the park that promote leave no trace, and do some great things with trail work. But I thought maybe there's an opportunity for kind of this underground, kind of edgy, meme based format, and it's taken off.
Yeah, it definitely has, and it's doing good. Some people probably hate you the same way people hate my podcast.
There's some haters out there.
Yeah,
there's doing something right.
I'm sure you get. Well, actually, I don't know if you get haters in the sense of you're going to get the haters from people who don't want to be told that they're maybe not doing something correctly. So that kind of is not to be not expected. But I'm saying, like, there's probably people who like can't stand what you do, but the same way they can't stand what I do, making a podcast by showcasing the place that I live, or like why they hate, these same people don't like Jonathan Zaharik, or because people showcase this place, and I think that's really unfortunate. But anyways.
Yeah. No, I know what you're saying. I think part of it's a product of social media, because social media, it is impersonal, so it's tough to develop those relationships. And it's much easier to kind of tear things down than to build things up in that way. And that's again something early on. I learned that it is social media, and there's a lot of interesting things that are implicated by that fact because it's impersonal. People are much more sensitive. So it's definitely something you gotta, put those, I don't want to say kid gloves, but, be especially cognizant of when I'm approaching someone who's say, flying a drone illegally, that's something they post that picture of, they're proud of what they did that's art to them. They had a great day and they flew their drone. And if I come at them and say like, hey, hey jerk, like, you're breaking the law, they're going to respond defensively. So it all goes down to that kind of engagement. But even with, even the best laid plans, some people are still going to, there's always going to be haters out there. There's all sorts of people in the world,
Yeah, big time. Now, actually, it's interesting you say that because there's a huge difference between leave no trace principles, which are principles. They are not laws. They're by no means a law. But like something like flying a drone, well, actually, you should know that you are actually breaking law. It's not like you shouldn't do it here. So there is a huge difference between those two kind of subjects. And actually, it's funny because over the summer, so I was working on a TV show all summer, and the stunt coordinator owns a house in Trout Lake, which is kind of like southern Adirondacks, south.
Yep, right, just west of Lake George there.
Yeah, exactly, that southeastern portion. And so he saw me wearing a 46 hat, and he came up and started talking to me. He was like, "Oh man, so you hike up there?" And we started talking and whatnot. And he told me this past winter he just got into hiking, and he just decided like on a whim to go and winter hike. And he was like telling me about how his first time was in jeans and he was doing all these things. And he's a Hollywood stuntman.
It's fun police special, right?
Yeah,
I'm sure he could handle it, right?
He's no fear. But he posted some pictures, and he started telling me, he's like, yeah, I posted these pictures. I was, it's like, this is my day. And then I got destroyed in the comments. He's like, I think I tagged Adirondack High Peaks or something. I don't know what he hashtagged, but he was like, I got destroyed for doing things so poorly. And the ADK Fun Police sent me a message and just kind of explained to me why it was.
No kidding.
So it's funny because he told me that you had messaged him, and he actually, I kid you not, he told me that you messaged him, and it was a really nice,
I love
heads
that.
up type of message where it was like,
Great.
hey, actually, maybe this might not be safe or this or that. I don't know exactly what you said, but so that was an interaction. And he goes, do you know that Instagram page, the ADK Fun Police? I said, oh, I definitely know that page. So yeah, so him and I became, good friends throughout the TV show this summer. But yeah, so that was just like a random interaction with two people who have.
I love to hear that and that's my goal is to, and it's happened before where like actually just the last couple of days there was someone had a drone that they took off on Giant, and they're up there with a group of friends. They took a selfie with it, and I had messaged him, and he acknowledged like, oh yeah, I didn't know it was against the law, and your point is well made that drone pilots are supposed to know the law, especially they're supposed to be FAA certified. They should know. There's certain things that aren't intuitive out there, and you might think jeans. Hey, jeans are a rugged piece of clothes. I'll go hiking in them, but actually it's cotton kills. But I got probably so I engaged with the guy, had a good interaction with him, and that was the end of it as far as I was concerned. But then I actually I probably received about, he hashtagged it, and probably about 20 to 30 people then sent me the video, pretty much just saying, hey, you can do something about this. I'm like, listen, I messaged the guy. He understands he did something wrong. As far as I'm concerned, that's the end of it. I'm not going to, post his video or something. And a couple other people did. I messaged this guy, said, hey, listen, people are sending me the video. People are posting it. Want to let you know it wasn't me. He ended up deleting the video because he was getting some pressure from some other people. But yeah, no, drone pilots definitely should know.
Yeah, 100%. Now, it's weird. I'm kind of torn about. So you mentioned that he was getting pressure from other people to delete, and I'm like, I'm so torn because I'm such a punk rock person by nature, and I live my life by like, don't tell me what to do, and I won't tell you what to do. So part of me is like, well, I'm going to do what I'm going to do, and you're going to do what you're going to do, and I'm never going to tell you what to do. But at the same time, I'm so torn because, yeah, but maybe it's because in my mind, like these mountains and the outdoors here is above and beyond anything else. So it's like I want them to be taken care of first and foremost, and screw your feelings and screw how you feel.
Right.
This is the top of the totem pole. So maybe that's why I'm so torn. But how do you kind of deal with this idea of people coming to you to say, well, what are you going to do about it? Because it's like, well, it's not anything for me to do. It's not like it says on my page, not a real law enforcement agency. So how do you kind of take that? Obviously, people look to you as an authority figure, quote unquote, in a sense.
It is interesting. It's come that way, and it comes up. People will. A lot of people aren't comfortable talking to law enforcement or talking to the rangers or something, or they don't know how to approach the ranger. So there's been multiple instances. Most notably, I don't know if you remember the Catskill graffiti or the Hunter Mountain graffiti incident. But I received that message and I got in touch with the Rangers, and it was like a minute by minute play by play of them going up the mountain and arresting the guy. So people, there's certain things like that. Like we had there was some campers on top of Cascade where people reached out to me. I reached out to some Ranger contacts, and they went up there and were able to write them tickets and disperse the campsites. So there's things like that, which I'm more than happy to do because, I've kind of developed just some connections with various Rangers who can respond very quickly. But then there's the things like the drone operator, where it's like, people send it to me, and I'm happy to reach out and to explain the rules to the extent I know them. I'm not like you said, I'm not law enforcement. I don't know all the rules. I'm pretty familiar with a lot of them. And, if I don't know something, I can probably find the answer to it. So I'm happy to be a resource to people and to reach out and engage people. But it's definitely, I don't like the idea that, it's a place to come snitch about people doing other things. And so in this case, I'm never going to ask someone to delete something or to take something down. Sometimes it's where someone was getting multiple messages like this drone operator was. It's probably prudent just because, people are going to do what people are going to do. But no, I mean, my goal is always to leave people with what the rules are and kind of why the rules are that way. And then let them do what they're going to do with it. Because when it comes down to it, if I can save them from getting a ticket and breaking the rules in the future, well, great, mission accomplished. If not, I mean, it is what it is. You're not gonna save everybody.
Yeah, and I say that all the time. Some people cannot be saved because they just don't care. And those are the people that we have to, we pull twice our weight when we're out there. They're going to throw their trash. They're going to throw their crap. They're going to do their things. All right, well, I'll just pull twice my weight because, again, like I said before, the mountains are what matter first and foremost.
Exactly. And that's kind of one thing that's kind of become kind of on that point. My unofficial mantra has been, we talk about, people talk about, what do we do about litter? What do we do about overuse? What do we do about erosion? And what do we do about violations of no trace principles? And my point always goes back to education and enforcement. Listen, if we saturate people with education, no one's going to have the excuse I didn't know. And 90% of the people, if they know, are going to abide by the rules. They'll be like, oh, I didn't know that. That's great to know. Now that's what I'm going to do from now on. And then that maybe 10% that aren't going to be educated no matter what, well, then we have to rely on enforcement. So with those two tiers, I think we solve so many of the problems that we have. One of those things easier said than done, of course. It's going to take a lot of funding and a lot of effort. But, we've got like AMR jumping to permits and to things like that. I'm like, well, listen, like we've skipped a few steps here,
Oh, yeah. No, that's you're a very logical person, which is probably why you and I have hit it off so well
for sure.
via Instagram messages over the last couple of years, and it makes perfect sense. So now another thing before we get to AMR,
sure.
You have so I feel like if someone was to ask me, so what are the main things you see ADK Fun Police talk about? I would say, well, the drone usage, where it's legal and where it's not legal, and then you have this other thing about knocking over Karens, which I see, which has taken Karen kicking, which has taken off.
It's gone wild.
Yeah, take me through that. So obviously we all know what Karens are, but have you found, and this is what I want to know, so just answer this, have you found that sometimes people are taking this as like, oh, if there's a Karen, I should knock it over? Because sometimes there are small Karens like on some of these high peaks trails that are so necessary, but how have you kind of helped people to differentiate that whole?
It's funny you mentioned that. You're absolutely right, and it's something I've been very conflicted about. I can't take credit for the rock kicking movement. It's very big out west, and I have a few memes about it, but I've been very much I've been inundated with people kicking over Karens, and I stopped sharing the videos because it's too much, and I can't validate what they're doing or if they're kicking over something that should be there or should not be there. I have an educational post. It's funny you mentioned that. I just reshared it this morning because I heard of some official Karens on Hurricane that were knocked over. So that's obviously unfortunate that if that's happening, that's not something that's condoned by anybody. So there, the idea is that always err on the side of caution. If you're not sure if something's official or not, leave it alone. The damage caused by knocking down an official Karen is way more than the damage caused by leaving an unofficial Karen standing. And there's certain things, obviously a rock stack, made of flimsy little rocks in the middle of a river is probably not official. Whereas, the above tree line, above 4,000 feet, monstrous Karens are obviously official. And there's all sorts of gray area between there. That's something that's kind of taken a life of its own. And I've kind of, been conflicted on how to approach that going forward because people are so passionate about it. I mean, I don't know if you saw the video floating around of someone's dog, running through a river, knocking down Karens. That was sent to me literally over 100 times. 100 people sent me that. I'm like, listen, guys, I've seen it. Thanks for sharing. I've shared it. Let's move on here. But yeah, that's an interesting one where I've tried. I think it's an important message to get across that rock stacking is a violation of leave no trace. It has tangible negative impacts on the environment, erosion, and things like that. But as far as the Karen smashing, I mean, it's just one of those. It's an internet meme. It's fun for people to do. But it certainly should be. People should be aware of what they're doing before they kick one over.
Yeah, definitely, 100%. Because there's some. I was just climbing up Redfield a couple weeks ago, and there's definitely some small cairns over there that are like, oh yeah, these are necessary. And as I passed them, I was like, man, I hope nobody kicks these over because they are kind of important to have here on the trail. And clearly, that's an unmarked trail. It's not maintained. That wasn't built by anyone in particular. So. And it's not maintained, so therefore, some nice person put this cairn together because it's very helpful. But those 100%. Are also small ones, and there's like if you've ever climbed, it's not even a climb really. It's a walk to a pretty awesome ledge or huge summit looking type of ledge, but it's called Cobble Lookout. It's in Wilmington. As you're driving up the toll road, you take that road to the right before the toll booth, and you go like 200 yards down the road, and there's the trailhead on the right. But it's just because you're already high up in elevation, so you basically park there. I think it's like 1.5, maybe 2 miles to this outlook, which is as good as a summit. But dude, I'm telling you, up there, 50 cairns everywhere, just everywhere, like out on the ledge. So it's places like that, like it's obvious. These are meant to be knocked over, and every time I'm there, I'm knocking more over. But the rocks are still there, so people just like see other ones like, oh, I guess I'll just keep building. And then it's kind of like when one person leaves a friggin' bag of dog crap at the trailhead in their in the plastic bag, and then another person does, and then another person does, and then another person, and then you have 28 bags of dog poop you're pulling out of the front of Cascade and throwing away in the garbage can at the corner store. That is a story that I partook
Stinking up your car, I'm sure.
Yeah,
it's brutal,
unbelievable. And it's like as you start to when I was doing that, like as I started pulling up the dog crap, it was like, oh my god, there's so many, and there's like just more and more and more. But yeah, so it's like the same thing with those cairns over at Cobble Lookout. It's like there's one, and now there's two, and before you know it, there's literally 50 of them. It's pretty wild. Great hike though. Very short too.
I'll have to check it out for sure. Always looking for the short little diversions. But no, I think the point's well made. I think between things like that and official Karens, there's a whole gray area in between. And I guess my message is, listen, if there's any doubt in your mind, if you're on an unmarked trail, if you're somewhere where a Karen it might be proper, just leave it be. Odds are the winter will knock it down, and someone will rebuild it next year. I get it's gratifying to knock them over, but when in doubt, leave them be.
Yeah, totally. I would strongly agree with that. So now let's talk about the AMR. You have been very vocal, as have I, about this permit system.
Yes.
And what were they calling it again last year? The pilot reservation system, but let's call it what it is because it's not about parking. Because if it was just about parking, which I'm okay with, if they want to charge for parking, they want to do Reservations to park, I have no problem with it.
Sure.
It is their property, so I'm
Right.
fine with it. But the fact that they tell us that we can't even be dropped off and walk into the property, clearly what they're telling us is not the actual truth. And I
Right.
don't get how people don't see this. It's literally black and white right in front of you. So you've been very vocal about your opinions on this whole system. And before, you mentioned there's a lot of steps we could have gone to before this pilot
Sure.
system. And, I have so many thoughts, and I've shared them a bunch on this podcast, but I'll probably share them again today. You have a lot. So take me through, so you mentioned we went right to the permit system, and there were a lot of steps we could have gone to. What do you think we could have done before that? Or kind of what's your whole take on this whole situation?
Yeah. So when they first announced, kind of like what you said, when they first announced, a parking reservation pilot system, my thought was, well, hey, let's see how they do it. This could be a good thing. A blend of approaches, because, not everyone can wake up at, 3 a.m. to get to the trailhead on a perfect day and go for a hike. There's a very, very small segment of the population that can and does do that. And that's good for them. I like that people can have that option of, hey, I'm going to be an early bird. I'm going to, get up there and get a beautiful, sunrise hike in, or a great morning hike. But a lot of people can't do that. People with families, people with jobs that conflict. So I like the idea of people being able to make a reservation and plan, a couple weeks in advance, but there needs to be accommodations for everybody to access things like this. But unfortunately, when we saw the details starting to come out, we had some wacky things like the bus ticket exception and exception for locals and Ausable Club members. And then obviously you couldn't be dropped off. Not only could you not be dropped off, you couldn't bike in or walk in or park in, Roaring Brook and cross the street. So I started thinking, what the heck's going on here? This doesn't make any sense. If this is about, about protecting the resource, why, there's so many other things that we can do. So it was pretty transparent early on that it was not about, protecting the resource. It was about limiting use. And, you see in kind of the double speak from groups like the Adirondack Council, or from some of the DEC. And listen, I think the DEC does generally a good job. I think they're hardworking people. Their personnel, they're certainly underfunded. But from the messaging from the DEC on some of the permits on this program has not been, it's kind of taken their cues from groups like the Adirondack Council and praising it as this great positive thing, when I don't think we have any metrics that confirm that. So yeah, I think it's there's a number of issues here, but that was when it first started to stink to me, was when I started looking at what the details were when this thing first started.
Yeah, and I don't understand how people didn't see this right when it started. I mean, I remember Jonathan Zaharik and I did an episode right after this came out, and we started read the newspaper, we read the press release just on the episode, and we just kind of went through it. It says there's so many things that just don't make any logical sense.
Yeah.
And it's like, if this is what you want to do, I completely think it's ridiculous. So be it. But don't try to also tell us. They try to wrap it with this this is a great positive thing, when it's like, actually, dude, no, it's not. What you're doing is literally limiting people from accessing state land. When there is an easement from the state that says that, as I am a taxpayer, I have the right to go here and to use this easement, and then to try to tell us that actually, no, you don't. But then it's just left unchecked. And then when the DEC kind of, just, of course, goes along with it all and, praises it like you just talked about, I'm just left dumbfounded by
and
the messaging that I'm hearing, because this is so surface level. This is so surface level that
it fails under surface scrutiny. This fails. And one of the things I'm an attorney. I know I don't do a lot of property law exclusively, but I've done this stuff. And so easements, people say, oh well, it's AMR's land, they can do what they want. Well, yes, it's their land, but the state owns an easement. And the way that in law school they teach about property rights is, picture property rights like a bundle of sticks. And, an easement is some of the sticks in the bundle. The state owns those sticks. It owns the easement. The easement cannot be taken away from it by AMR, even though AMR owns the underlying property. So if AMR unlawfully restricts the easement, they're actually trespassing on the easement, because the easement is a property right. So, when people say, oh, well, it's their land, they can do whatever they want, that's not really true. So the state owns the easements, and there's terms in the easement that the access can be limited under certain limited situations, but only with consent of the state. So we got to look to the state to be our advocates here and say, well, what are we doing to protect the public's rights here? Because that's their obligation. They're supposed to be looking out for us and our access and our public lands. And I think we skipped a lot of steps before we got here, and I think this is more draconian than it needs to be to protect the resource. So yeah, I think they, and I think push comes to shove. My opinion is it goes up to the governor's office. I think they take their cues from the top, and I'm not going to speculate as far as what's going on there and why this is the way it is. But there's certainly some high level things, high level interactions going on there.
Yeah, it's quite unfortunate. What would you say would have been better steps to get to that place?
Well, again, I go back to kind of education enforcement. I think front country education is very important. I think summit stewarding is very important. And I think, ranger presence, in the back country and the front country is also very important. I think these kind of things, the combination of education and enforcement can alleviate a lot of the issues. If word is out there that, hey, if you don't, if a ranger, catches you taking a crap on the side of the trail, you're going to get a ticket, and the rangers are out there doing this, or, you get word out there that enforcement is happening. You've seen it happen with the fun police. People are aware, and there's a deterrent effect to just the general knowledge that these things are going on. So no, I think there's certainly degrees of funding for existing programs that could have been done. We could have done, maybe a reservation system on the big weekends, Columbus Day, 4th of July, something like that, to see how that works. How do people like it? We could have done a half and half, half reservations, half first come, first serve. We could have done that. We could go ahead and do full reserve the whole parking lot, but why not have a shuttle stop there? Or maybe a limited degree of shuttle stops. I mean, things like that certainly could have been approached before we went right to full-on permit access restrictions.
Oh man, I could not agree more with all of that. And, but of course, a lot of this comes down to the Adirondacks refuse to improve infrastructure. And
sure,
there's I don't know how that, all kind of plays out, but there's definitely other things at play that are causing these sorts of issues to happen. And also too, it's like the locals can go there, so their footsteps don't matter. But it's also only Keene and Keene Valley, even though Elizabethtown is right there, with all these other Adirondack towns.
Jay,
Lake Placid's right there. Jay, It's like, okay, so just the Keene and Keene Valley. And God, dude, I tell you, man, I mention this on this podcast often, but man, that whole Keene vibe just rubs me the wrong way all damn day.
Have you looked at property prices in Keene? Yeah, good luck trying to buy something there.
Yeah,
it's
I know.
Wild, man. It's crazy. But no, you're absolutely right. Those would be the people making the loudest stink, probably, if they were subject to the permit. So what they did is they quieted down what would be one of the loudest voices of opposition, the local municipality. Because now the local municipality, did great. They got a great, asset for their residents, So why are they going to complain? So it's really left to the rest of us to bring notice to this kind of thing. So what they did is they effectively silenced the municipality there by giving them that right. But no, that's yeah. And so, I mean, you get the issue. So what's a local resident? You have to have your mailing address there. I mean, what if you Airbnb a place in Keene? Are you now a resident for purposes of access to over AMR? I mean, it's just, how poorly thought out this is. I mean, can you have a vacation home there? Do you have to register to vote there? What does it mean to be a local resident,
Sure. And I've had people tell me, in like messages or whatever about, it's only from May to the end of October. It's not that big a deal, but it's like, well, that's actually that's your typical hiking season. Most people are not hiking between the others, which is why that's where when it is.
Sure.
But still, I just think there's a bigger, kind of problem at play. To me, that argument, well, it's only this portion of time. It's like, well, you also have 10 fingers. How about I cut off your one pinky? You still have 9.
You don't need your pinky, right?
Do you need 10? How about I cut your pinky off? I think you'll be okay. And no one is going to be like, oh yeah, sure, here you go, cut it off. I don't need it. No, it's not how it works. It's not how it's supposed to be. This whole restricting our access to the public lands is just. And again, once you give it to them, you're never getting it back, and that's what I don't think people see. I don't think people see the bigger picture to this when they do make that argument. Though I will be honest with you, I don't I feel like most people think that this is not a good thing if they actually look into it. But I'm right there with you, dude. I think the idea of being able to make a reservation so that you have a place to park, because there's so many mountains you can access there and it's a great spot.
Right. Right.
I thought that's great. And I actually, in a perfect world in my mind, it seems like, okay, let's make half the parking lot or
Sure.
3/4 of the parking lot reservation, and you can book your time. I think that is a good idea, because of course
Yeah.
I live 40 minutes from the AMR, and most people don't. So I understand the idea of being able to book a parking spot, and I think that is a good thing. But
Yeah. And
not
let
at
the
the
early
expense
risers. Yeah.
not at the expense of losing, literally not even being able to walk in on my feet to go.
Right.
Well, unless I have a bus ticket from some other place.
Right. In which case, I've actually heard a couple people that have actually done
Makes
that.
no
They've
sense.
gone and they bought the Lake Placid to Keene, one way bus ticket for like $10, and they walk right. They park at Roaring Brook and they walk right in, and
I
it
love
works.
it.
One of the new things that they've introduced this year, and this is just some guerrilla fighting on our part. They introduced if you don't have internet access, you don't have access to the Hike AMR website. So you can actually mail in a request for a reservation at a certain time, and apparently that's all you need to do. It doesn't matter whether it's available or not. If you mail in your request, you'll have a reservation. And actually, one person mailed in a request and asked for reimbursement for their stamps, and they actually sent them reimbursement for their stamp to mail it in, because they sent it certified. So there's all sorts of wacky stuff going on that just show the whole program is kind of built as a house of cards.
Yes, it definitely is a house of cards. Kind of reminds me a lot about what's going on in the real world right now.
Yeah,
but that's very fascinating, and I love hearing that. Here, let me show you how to get around it. Oh my god, dude, It gets me so fired up, and maybe it's my punk rock nature, but like that gets me so excited when something makes no sense and is stupid, and people can really quickly skirt around it, and the people at the gates are like, oh sure, great, this is awesome, here we go. Go right in,
go ahead.
All right. It just gets me so stoked personally.
There's the humorous stories like that, which I love. I think the community that's kind of developed around the Fun Fleece is kind of it's developed at kind of that kind of like you said, a punk rock attitude, where it's kind of this guerrilla kind of thing, but it's also kind of very, very caring about the woods and compassionate to new users. I like to think, at least the vast majority are, I hope. But I on the other hand, with the humorous things like that, there's been some kind of some quite negative interactions between people and some AMR personnel. I was reading some of the comments on a post yesterday. Apparently, someone was held at, I don't know, again, take these with a grain of salt because they're Instagram comments, but someone said someone was held at gunpoint, until the Rangers arrived. We've got the early on allegations of people in plain clothes on certain summits asking people where they parked to see if they were circumventing the reservation system. So there's all sorts of wacky stuff, wacky allegations. Wow. I guess in time, those will be fleshed out more. But it's certainly been the Wild West.
That is really fascinating. If you listening are any of these people that have had weird interactions with people at AMR or on summits hiking from that area, shoot me a message, because I'd love to hear more about that.
Interesting to hear about those.
I've not heard anything like that. But people on summits asking where you parked, like, my God.
Yeah, that was early on. There was probably at least 3 different reports of that. I doubt they're doing it anymore, but early on that was a pretty frequent encounter. And
it wasn't just like some dude just say, "Hey, where'd you guys park today? Did you have to park down there?" It was an AMR person.
It's all hearsay. They were saying it was they believed it was AMR personnel. I don't think they're wearing uniforms or not, but apparently that was the way the conversations went.
Interesting. Not that anyone really knows what exactly is the Ausable Club, because it's like never open, and
right.
I never see anybody golfing there. I really know what they do there. I've seen
more people mowing the lawn than actually golfing.
Sure. I don't quite I don't think any of us really know what goes on behind those
Yep.
doors,
Yep.
and you're sure as hell not going to get inside to find out.
Right. Right. Not without a $30,000
Yeah.
entry fee or whatever it costs
Nobody
to join.
listening to this podcast is going to be able to afford the AMR lifestyle, because it just seems like this is all like a very hidden society.
Mhm.
And actually, the vast majority of AMR, not clientele. That's not the right word.
The membership.
Membership. Yes,
Yep.
thank you. Members. They're like from all over the country. Nobody, there's maybe a few people who are local who might be there, but like most of their roster are all over the world.
Right. Right.
So it is a fascinating underground society. But you know what? So is the ADK Fun Police. It is an underground society, and they are doing good for the Adirondack Park. Maybe it pisses you off when they call you out on your nonsense, but it is being done because the mountains, the outdoors, are more important than offending you. They're more important than your fun, and it can all be enjoyed. It can all be, you can have all the fun you want, have the biggest adventure of your freaking life, and you can also do right by the outdoors that you are recreating in.
Amen. Amen, man.
Cool. Well, let's start to wrap this thing up here. This has been a really fun conversation. I'm glad we finally got to touch base.
Absolutely, for sure.
So I always like to end summit sessions with a few simple questions that are just kind of fun and unique to you. So question number one, what's something that you personally always like to keep in your backpack when you go outdoors? That's like a unique thing to you.
Oh man, a couple Fun Police stickers.
Perfect.
I always like to have a couple. I haven't given them out to anyone yet, but I always keep them in there in case I see someone and strike up a conversation. So I've got something to give to them. That's probably one of the more unique things. Otherwise, my pack is pretty standard. I've got all the standard stuff in there. What else is anything else interesting in there? I'm trying to go through my inventory in my head. The same inventory you do before you leave the driveway. Do I have everything? No. That's pretty much that's probably the most unique thing I carry.
I've always thought that I should just go some weekend with just a whole sleeve of 46 of 46 podcast stickers and just put one on the windshield, like under the wipers. Like every car parked at giant going to the AMR. I've always thought I should do that. I never have, but it seems like it'd be a really good boost of like, hey, you never heard of the podcast? You clearly like hiking here. Here's a great
something
use of your time
home,
when you're driving home. Second, what do you think makes the Adirondacks a unique place, especially in terms of the outdoors?
Well, that's a great question. I think the scale of the place and all the options it has. I mean, most people think of the Adirondacks, they go right to the high peaks, which are obviously a defining feature of the park. But it's such a big park, and it's so unique in the fact that it is a combination of state lands as well as private lands. We have such wonderful towns. Between Tupper, Saranac, Placid, all the towns in the Adirondacks, are such wonderful little communities and, kind of tucked surrounded by state land. So I think that's one of the things that really makes it special. And then I think, it's, it's obviously special to me because it's what I know, it's where I grew up. So it's nothing can beat that.
Totally. I would agree. Now, my final question is, why do you hike? Why do you recreate outdoors? What is the bigger picture for you as to why you personally like to spend your time outdoors?
Yeah, good question. It's something, it's something my wife and I both love to do. So it's a great shared thing for us. I don't like running, but I do like hiking. So it's obviously a great exercise. And I mean, I remember hiking as a kid and the feeling of, that last 100 yards before the summit, you've just gotten your ass kicked, for however many miles and you're tired and you're muddy and but then you get up there and you feel that breeze on a summit and you got that view. And even when you don't have the view, it's for that feeling. I mean, that is it's one of the best feelings in the world.
It is an addicting feeling. And, even
Absolutely.
after summiting hundreds and hundreds of mountains, it's like, once you get towards the top and you have that kind of peaky summit vibe, you're like, oh man, it's just, and anyone will agree, it's just as exciting on your 1,000th mountain as it is on your first mountain.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
It doesn't matter if you've done the mountain before or,
Yep.
and that's the other thing, maybe that's another, thing with the Adirondacks is every time, God knows how many times I've hiked Noonmark, but every time I'm up there, it's a different feel, winter, different seasons, different weather patterns. I mean, there's always something new to experience, even on familiar trails.
Yeah, dude, it's always a new adventure, and that's what makes the outdoors such an awesome place to spend your time. Now, where can people find you, Mike?
At ADK Fun Police on Instagram.
There it is. All right. That's going to wrap us up right now in this Summit Sessions right here on the 46 of 46 podcast. It was a fantastic conversation with Mike from the ADK Fun Police. He's on Instagram at ADK Fun Police. Check him out. He is doing good. If you don't like him, I'd shoot him a message and tell him why. I'm sure he'd be really quick to win you over as to what his mission is, and hopefully that happened right here on this podcast, because I fully support what he's doing and the way that he does it. And I think it's a classy way of actually giving people education like we always talk about. People need to be educated, and I think the way that he approaches it has some edge, some punk rockness, but also some real heart, and I really appreciate it. But that's going to do it right here on the Summit Sessions. Thanks for listening. Check out 46of46.com. I have an ebook for sale about how to hike the 46 high peaks in a great, responsible way. It has all the information you may need to know. I'm a licensed guide, and I have some guide services as well. Check all that stuff out at 46of46.com. And tune in on Fridays for new mountains, new stories, new episodes right here on the 46 of 46 podcast. Remember to always leave no trace, do the rock walk, and if you carry it in, carry it out. See you on the trails, everybody.